The companies winning with AI aren't the ones with the biggest budgets. They're the ones who are starting right now. If you've been waiting for someone to cut through the noise and show you exactly how AI can transform your work, your wait is over. Your competitors have already signed up. I'm Kenny, founder of Brim and the host of the AI Opportunity. Brilliant. Well, welcome to the AI Opportunity. I'm Kenny, and we are going to talk today about how small businesses and medium-sized companies really can get the most from AI. There is a huge amount of confusion out in the world at the moment where the whole world seems excited about AI, but actually what we want to do is help companies understand practical, real world stories of where companies are really seeking and exploiting the opportunities that AI bring. I'm really very fortunate today to be joined by a excellent guest, Lucky Gobindram. And Lucky has a really esteemed background working both in technology for large enterprise businesses all the way through to sort of growing medium-sized businesses in good up New York City. So excited to be joined by you, Lucky. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Pleasure to be joining you from the Big Apple.
Yeah,
How are
how
you
is the
today?
Big Apple? How is
It's
the Big
amazing.
Apple?
Getting cold, man. It's the leaves are changing. It's beautiful. The foliage is up, multicolor. I mean, fall, every season in New York is beautiful, but I live slightly outside the city in a suburb on the North Shore of Long Island, and I mean, it's gorgeous right now. It's a beautiful time of year.
Yeah, I was in New York not long ago, and I think that the going into sort of December becomes quite brutal in New York, right? Really.
We're, we're on our way. They say they're predicting more snow because last year we had record lows in terms of snowfall. And they're saying, oh, this year's going to be a big year, but they always say that. Hopefully it's mild.
Brilliant.
We'll
Well, look,
see.
awesome to have you on the show today. And I guess I'll just jump straight in, really thinking about our audience and what matters to them. So, from the world that we live in at the moment, as I said at the start, there is a huge amount of excitement around AI. But really, most companies are scratching their heads and going, well, what can we do? How do we do it? And so there is a massive gap at the moment. What do you think, from your perspective, that medium-sized businesses are either underestimating or are kind of missing about AI when they start interacting with it and technology generally, really?
So I think smaller business or SMBs or SMEs, however you want to classify them, often get a few things wrong about AI, right? They confuse experimentation with execution. I think that's key here. They think AI equals automation, but in reality, it's augmentation. They want AI strategy decks before they've picked a single use case or identified the challenges within their own business and looked at their business specifically, right? So they need to discover and look at their own organization where they could gain from the technology. The best AI strategy starts with one real problem, not a 50 slide plan. So that's how we approached like the Kinemeric platform, deployments like Linda's Reality, not as a science project, but a solution to a real challenge around training, safety, workforce readiness, right? Things like that, right? And that's how you really start leveraging the tool to become augmenting your workforce for success.
That's really interesting. If you don't mind me, sorry to interrupt there, but I just want to double in and sort of really help the audience understand a little bit better, because I think that's a really interesting insight about companies looking at AI as a solution to automation. What do you mean by that? Why do you think companies are misunderstanding AI
Let me,
and
let me,
automation?
because that's also how people are marketing it, right? Like, there's a lot of these people that have created a lot of rah around the industry and buzz around AI, and that's fine, right? That it has its place, but like, okay, you could go put an AI tool like a BDR, for example, right? It's very commonplace today, right? Like it does all the outbound, does the calling, whatever it is. You put a knowledge base in, you get going with it, right? Yes, it will begin to outbound for you. It will, there's qualification tools, etc. And it will do that, but you still need to trust and verify, right? There's still somebody who needs to go in there and actually prune it, manicure it, and continue to like fine tune that tool. And then it still is going to come back to a human nine out of 10 times to actually take it to the last mile. So it's not going to replace, it's not going to completely automate. It's going to augment your process and add scale in a tactful way, if done correctly. It's going to create efficiency that wasn't there.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I guess that connects quite nicely to what you were saying about how understanding what specific work you want to focus on as sort of discrete, unique sort of processes that AI can help you with fits really nicely with this idea of augmentation. Is that broadly the understanding of what you were coming at?
Yes, I think so. And like for example, when we built Kinemeric, we built that to prove what happens when you merge human experience and machine intelligence, right? Where AI becomes embodied, believable, and useful. Like so, what we were trying to build a blueprint for how enterprise can operationalize AI for onboarding and any other type of soft skill. And like I think that's you segment it and you look at a human problem that's costing the business, and how do you take that human problem and use the technology to create advantage for the human, right? For example, they've onboarded somebody in a traditional manner. Okay, they've given them books, put them in classrooms, had trainers, they did role play in person of a classroom of people, and people don't really find their footing, right? And because muscle memory is really the skill of learning in these ways. So when we start thinking about it, we're like, okay, how do we take this and make it into an environment where you can enable humans to role play in a way that gives them skills of soft skills, so whether it be onboarding, learning the business, learning products, right? And we saw, okay, lead on most businesses that are doing door to door, $500 burned every time. How do you close that gap? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think the challenge that we see a lot of businesses have, whether they are 30 people or they're 1,000 people, is how do they identify where AI can actually help them? Like for us, the big gap at the moment in the market is not even an, a lack of interest or a lack of desire to use AI. A lot of it we see from businesses every day is, okay, but what can I do? And so, what has been your experience there in terms of helping organizations understand, both in your current role and the current business, which we'd love to delve into in a second, but also historically in the roles where you've led really very large organizations like Semtrex, right? That's a 1,000 person organization where you were the sort of general manager. Like, how how do you deal with that people side of identifying problems and then navigating, solving those problems with AI in organizations?
Okay. So if I were advising a company of a couple hundred people, where should they start? I think is the core question here, right? So
Yeah.
I'd start where human knowledge bottlenecks are, and that's usually onboarding, service training, customer support. So I'd look at those human knowledge bottlenecks, right? And you use embodied AI as a multiplier, not a replacement, right? So don't overinvest in photorealism, invest in believability and measurement, and then focus on one KPI that matters. So, like time to competency, for example, if you're learning something. So, you don't need like a lab to use AI. You need a bottleneck worth breaking, right? Where are the bottlenecks in the business?
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to think about it. And I actually think that's a really nice takeaway for the audience. Where are you most frustrated as an
Yes.
organization, right? What's
Easy
keeping you up
question,
at
right? We're
night?
all talking about it. We're all complaining. Which ones we're solving, right? And which one can benefit from
No,
throughout this?
that's really, really useful insight. I think there's something else that you said that I think is really fascinating, which is about the measurement. I think that is something that is easy to lose sight of, right? Like, for example, when you go into an organization, how do you help them think about measuring the return of your technology? Whether it's now or even previous organizations, how have you, as a manager, as a leader, thought about rate of return when it comes to technology change?
So, I mean, this depending on the size of the company, they're already measuring things, right? And they already have processes. So when part of the consulting thing is also understanding how they're doing it today. Where are they frustrated? How are they measuring it? And then you can look at the differential. That's one easy way, right? So like right now, for example, when I said measured to competency, right? Today, let's go back to that trading example. I think it's just a very easy way to look at this, right? And a bottleneck for many businesses to get people to actually be up to par. When you're looking at it today, no what it takes for you to get somebody to be successful in a role. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, different on the different what the training cycle is, whatever it is. You can look at how fast it is the competency, right? Very easy thing, right? You can see where that confidence level ranks in a week, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and you can measure a traditional cohort versus a modern cohort. And all of a sudden, you can see the disparity in success when you actually see application. Like going back to the same example, right? You put them into the field, you're using sales, right? And whatnot, conversion rate, right? You can see, traditional cohorts closing 30% of the time, modern cohorts closing 80% of the time. What's the difference? How we instituted the knowledge, how we gave them resources, how we made it dynamic to them, how we understood who they were and how they learned. So I think there's a
Yeah.
couple levers, but it's unique to each organization. There's commonality by use case, but like each organization has nuance.
So that's really interesting, and it makes a lot of sense that you'd have really clear measures in place, whether they're measures you already have that you're trying to extend. But in a lot of companies, even companies that are doing sort of tens of millions of dollars in revenue, sometimes internal BI is still quite limited, right?
Oh,
And
sure.
it's just not there. And that makes it quite challenging for a lot of organizations to be able to do that sort of analysis that maybe you've seen in the largest enterprises. But if you were, I don't know, a 200-person organization, are you effectively saying that as part of picking any AI vendor or working with any AI implementation provider, you would have clear metrics that you're framing the project on and the application on? Is that the sort of advice that you'd maybe be offering to the audience, just so the audience are able to understand, like, how could they put AI into practice with your experience?
So, a couple of ways we do this. You don't need a full BI stack to start AI. You need a hypothesis in place to capture feedback. Okay. So let's start there. You don't need a full BI. But what we do, and this is going back to sort of my experience, when we're getting involved with things, and some of these customers have the benefit, flexibility to invest in these things a little bit more heavily. We come in a lot of times and we will do discovery. So we'll spend time with them, we'll understand, we'll look at the business processes, we'll identify challenges, we will make recommendations on how things can benefit from these technologies and the convergence of these technologies. We'll create baseline metrics to understand where they are today. We'll tell them these types of tools, we think that we can get to here, and then we'll benchmark it, right? So there's like a whole life cycle from the consultative journey to do that. But knowing most mid-sized companies overthink the data piece, they wait until they have the perfect dashboards before experimenting. And then by then, the window for learning is gone. We see success by starting with observable metrics, even before instrumentation. Things like, I don't know, training completion time or customer response time, and so on. Like these are very things you can understand. So once you have proven value qualitatively, then you layer in like simple data capture, even a spreadsheet or form is enough to close the loop. So I think there are ways for SMBs, mid-sized companies, 200-person teams to lean in here.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more, and it definitely resonates with some of the things that we're seeing out on the ground. I guess your experience is awesome. I mean, you've been in technology for such a long time, and you've seen so many technology transitions, and I think the space you're working in now is extremely exciting. Could you maybe give us an example of one of the projects that you've worked on where you've helped a company go through that technology transition with AI, and what the outcomes have looked like and what that's meant for the company? And the reason why I ask that is because, again, I think for our audience, the biggest challenge is understanding what is tangible in this world of hype and AI. Like you said earlier, right? There's so much noise, and you've given us a few suggestions already around training completeness, response times. I think it would be really good if you could put us in that kind of story, like we're in a campfire and we're learning from your experience. That would be awesome.
So yeah, I'll start with this thought right before I actually go into the application. I think I'll two part that in the way I'm thinking about it. Right? But I say AI is not the story. Adoption is. The magic happens when AI becomes invisible and measurable. Okay, that's the key here. right? Everybody's like, AI, it's front and center. It's this big headline. No, 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 no. Good business is good business. And how you adopt technology and change management is the anchor to your plan. People chase tools, not outcomes. And I want to make that clear. We chase outcomes, not tools. And the cost is overestimated in so many ways. Going to a use case, an application, real world. I go back to what we're doing at Kinemeric, and you're right. We've been doing this for a long time. We've done this in a consultative lens where we've implemented AI on a per customer basis in different applications. We've seen commonality around it. So we started building Kinemeric. Kinemeric is a platform that converges XR and AI, like you're talking about, believable humans. And I've touched upon, as we've talked, soft skills, role play, simulation. How do you create embodied situations? Most of us have been in Chat GPT, we've talked to it or Grok, and we've had conversations. So what we started seeing is, how do we make AI visual? How do we make it conversational in a sense where you close the loop in a situation that is challenging for most businesses and costly for most businesses? And, how do we improve operations and performance and change what others learn, right? And make sure it's not like tribal knowledge, but consistent, right? So I'll give you an example of the deployment that we've done with Kinemeric. So Lindus Reality, company Lindus Construction, they're based in the Midwest. They're a leading home improvement company, faced high training costs, right? And high cost of leads that got burned, right? So you're sending people out, they're going to their door, they're knocking, they got a lead costs $500 on average. That guy's learning by burning that lead. Crazy, right? So face those risks, inconsistent field performance, etc. So onboarding new salespeople to their sales team to sell roofing, gutters, home improvement, etc. This could take months to get reliably well-trained people in the field. You have them shadowing, you have them recording their calls and their meets by training tools and having lead trainers re-listen, which is impracticable, not scalable. So we built the employment of Kinemeric called Lindus Reality, a spatial training platform powered by our believable human system. So AI-driven embodied humans that role play as customers and trainers and simulate sales scenarios, as well as coaching early on to teach you about their product. So then you have this voice and gesture interactions that lets you sales associates talk and learn from these visual mentors, right? And integrated analytics that track learning curves and retention, and also the continuous learning. So it's powered by AI through the whole learning cycle, from the initial interactions to the scoring systems to the recurring learning, because it knows where you suck, where you're great, etc. And what we see is a reduction in time to readiness. We see people are much quicker to be able to go out and get their first deal closed. They're also much quicker to be out in the field and knocking on doors confidently without burning leads. So, and that is huge, like how much money saved from not burning leads and the speed to first deals and consistent and a higher close rate. So it's repeatable, it's measurable training, same quality across every trainee and region. And it's real world ROI with lower rework rates of teaching that person and retraining them, fewer burning leads, and faster scaling of new crews.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I think it's interesting for a few reasons I'd love to pull out. I think one is that when companies talk about AI, or people, especially our audience, think about AI, they probably don't think about such traditional industries, such as home improvements, right? Like,
Yeah.
understanding that AI can help a home improvement business is something you have to see to believe. So I think it's a really interesting example, because I think it can really help people reframe their thinking. But I also think that the example is really powerful, because it goes right to the company's bottom line, right? It's got two big levers. One lever is, well, we're spending all these money on leads. They're very expensive. Every company has to acquire customers. Every company has to get some form of lead that they sell to. And every business leader understands that you can't waste leads, right? So
Oh, yeah.
clearly
Lifeblood.
it's the lifeblood of every business. So there's a measurable outcome there, that if you can help that company be more efficient with its leads, then ultimately it's going to make more money, but it's also going to spend less money. And then I think the second point that you measure as part of your implementation around how junior and new salespeople can go from being first day in to being productive quickly is huge, right? Because
Yeah.
we all know that the cost of training, the cost of recruitment across the globe, both in America and in Europe and beyond, is expensive and getting
Rising.
exactly and increasing by the day. So making sure that you can lower the risk around how you can help team members become productive quickly is such a powerful use of AI. This is why I love hosting this podcast, because it's really good examples of how real world examples can really help our audience expand their perception of what is possible with AI. So this is really, really super interesting,
Yeah.
those two examples.
Force accelerator, right? Like it wasn't like some AI tool that was just there and like, used for a period of time. Looking at an acceleration to increase, retention of employee conversion. Yeah, This is this is insane when you think about like how you could actually make it benefit a business rather than, become, just a fancy tool that's buzzy, right?
Yeah, and that's what's really interesting, is that we are living in the hype cycle of AI, right? Where
Yeah.
there are thousands of these fancy tools out there. And I think it's really interesting that actually for a lot of businesses, if they really want to get success from AI, they have to do what you did with the company you just gave us as an example. They have to really think about what are the frustration points. I think that's how we described it earlier, right?
A
Where's the
hundred
friction?
percent.
Where can I, as a business leader, get leverage from AI and augment my staff? And I think that is, something that probably is pretty powerful for the audience to take away.
And it starts small, right? A lot of times, these companies, like I told you earlier, they chase tools, not outcomes. They forget to start small. Proof of value, not proof of concept. When creativity meets KPIs, the CFO stops calling it innovation, it's a whole different conversation all of a sudden.
Yeah, and that's really interesting about the CFO. I think everyone who's in this field around AI, and they're speaking predominantly to COOs, CFOs, decision makers in companies. How do you find that? How do you find communicating value to these types of leaders? Yeah, where have you seen challenges? Where potentially do you think CFOs are thinking about AI in the right way? And where do you think they're thinking about AI in the wrong way?
I think they're thinking about it the same way as I am and way I'm sharing with you. And the problem is the other people that are bringing it to them are not. And they want to be focused on outcomes because they're looking at this from a lens of the holistic business and what it takes to create a successful, efficient bottom line. And when they can create measurable difference, all of a sudden, they're much more interested in looking to build a proof of value and creating value because ultimately that helps their goal for the business. Right? So you need to align with their goals rather than trying to align with the smaller thought process that we're often, you know, relegated in, right? And like a lot of times these smaller type things, and when people look in there, they're underestimating the change management. I think that's where we see the pain.
No, that's really interesting, and it's interesting coming from yourself as well, because in many respects you've been both sides of the table, right? Lucky, you've been a general manager, that kind of leading role in a very large organization, and now you're on the side of being a provider into these large businesses and helping them with technology. It's really, really interesting.
And even still, before Semtrax acquired Ash and my company, One Arm Bandit, OAV Studios, we were an innovation lab based in New York. And even when we went into that organization, we did help with some of that side of the business, but we still were running an innovation lab within there and doing this for enterprises. So we've been doing this for enterprises for 20 years in customers.
Yep.
It was iPhone 2 App Store 1 16 years ago. It evolved, and today it's XR and AI, right? But like, we've been watching the evolution of technology since youth and instrumenting technology as long as we could code, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's just part of our DNA.
No, that's really interesting. Really, really interesting. I think the big risk and worry that a lot of general managers, COOs, CFOs, leaders of organizations have is, well, great. You've told me what the rate of return is going to look like. We found a great project. We're all excited about doing this proof of value. But what about when things go wrong? Could you maybe give us some example of where things have gone wrong? And, what are the lessons that our audience might be able to take from that?
I mean, you learn as much as from when things go wrong to when things go right. So going back to when we first started merging XR and AI, and we were trying to build things like we're doing today. APIs and real-time functionality didn't exist. Okay. So the human interface and the user experience was different. And I would say like it was not nearly as silky smooth. Some would say it was a failure. I think it was a learning along the journey. And as we learned, we evolved and we found solutions and we tried again and we deployed it again and we used other pilots and right now and we kept moving. So there are gonna be peaks and valleys along this. What you're looking for is north lights, north stars, I mean, right, within your data and your use case. So if you see some gains where there's still some efficiency created or different inefficiency created, then you need to look at it more. It's like that of building any business or building any solution within a business and trying to change a process or evolve something or deploy new technology. It's not a linear line. It's never going to be right. And the ones that get disheartened and are like, oh man, this went wrong. It's like, okay, what did you learn from it? It's the same thing you tell kids, right? It's just different.
You're absolutely right, and it's a powerful point because we are at this stage in AI where a huge amount is possible now. I think we see more possible every day, but
Oh yeah.
there's a gap, right, between what's possible and applying AI, like you say, applied AI in businesses. And to achieve that, you do have to go through some form of experimentation to see where you can get that leverage. So those frustration points, right? And I think it's an interesting point you make because one thing we're seeing from a lot of customers is those who've got a long-term perspective, they kind of see AI as something that can really expand their margins over the coming years. They are more open to those peaks and troughs, right?
Yeah.
What do you think that means about the psychology of being a leader in 2025 and facing what is a whole new paradigm, right, with AI? Is there anything you can offer from a sort of psychology perspective that you think that our audience should be thinking about having as a sort of mental model?
Yeah, so what I try to do, and I think Ash, my co-founder, also, he thinks the same way, and not to speak for him, and it's like, okay, right, there's going to be a lot of noise, a lot of things coming at you, be a lot of people that have opinions. Experiment yourself, try and learn from those types of things, and the outcomes are what dictate what's valuable, and I think that's what you really want here. Um, yeah, I think people forget that good business is good business, right? And like some things are beneficial. Some things you just like even with the benefits of technology, you can't circumvent, right? You still need to have core things. And like what you have said to like, having foresight, being able to see down the pike of your business and understand those people are more successful because if you're listening to all the noise a lot of the times and you're like a chicken without a head, it's not the tool that's problematic. It's sort of the style of the way you're running the business, right? Because longevity of things, you got to think generational, you got to think longer, you got to think further for staying power. And when you're thinking about technology, you got to think about the curves and valleys because technology is going to change. And if you want to touch every shiny new object, then like you're going to be chasing cars, right? And like, what happens when you catch the car? Do you even know what you're going to do? No, right? So like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a business outlook sense and a philosophy thing here. And I think ultimately, from a philosophical standpoint, it's slow down, right? And not everything that everybody does is applicable to you. And like, you gotta really look at your business in the short and long term.
I think it's an amazing insight and advice for people because I think we are in a world where there are 1,000 different companies coming at people saying, "Hey, we've got the best thing in since sliced bread in AI.
Crazy.
Please look at our proposition." If I'm frank, I think the audience that are listening to this, they're all just confused.
Fair.
Just
Early
just
days, man. Early
just co-
days.
just confused. Where do we start? Who do we trust? What do we do? So I think it's really powerful for the audience to hear that even someone like yourself, who's been basically working at the cutting edge of technology for large businesses for 20 or so years, is also can relate with all the
Oh yeah.
noise and the pain around that noise. So that's amazing. Now I know that I would continue this conversation for many, many hours, but I know
Anytime.
you are a busy man, Lucky. So I'd love to head to our quick fire round. I have a few questions for you, which I think could be really great for the audience to learn from. So starting really with is where do you see the biggest AI opportunity at this point in time for our
Where do
audience?
I see the uh biggest opportunity? I think that's a loaded question. So I think once again it goes back to where you're sitting in the business. I think that you're going to get very different perspectives from different people at different levels of organizations and different sizes of organization. For me, and like I'm partial, I think embodiment. I think making AI more human and believable, contextual, human enough to teach and guide and collaborate with others. I think that's the biggest opportunity, right? We want AI to fit within our world and add value to us. At least that's how I see it. I don't want it replacing humanity. I think AI powered with spatial and real world is where the biggest opportunity is, right? And I think it's a flywheel that feeds each other in a really weird way, right? Because AI getting to AGI, it means it needs to understand the world, right? And like robotics and some of these other things, and like that, I think is the lever that really starts pushing the boundaries. To be honest with you, I mean that's just my 2 cents,
Yeah.
but
No,
I don't
look,
know how.
that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And to be honest, I think we're all anyone who's watched the film Her will know that we're potentially heading to a pretty powerful world, right? So
Yeah, for years it's lived in dashboards and chat windows. The next wave is putting it into the world, right? Where people can see it, talk to it, learn from it. I don't know.
no,
That's
just
what
moving
we've started to do with our believable humans, right? That's what I see when I put it on. I've trained people for mixed reality and virtual use cases and stuff like that. It's like bringing AI off the screen into real spatial environments.
and just to sort of move forward to through the quick fire questions, if you could give a CEO, CFO, COO, any of the sort of executive team one piece of advice right now, what would it be in this context?
I'd say the biggest opportunity is right now, is the truth. I think that like a lot of people are around the edges and like, not sure and hesitating. One of the biggest AI opportunities right now. Like I think that you want to be early, you want to learn, and you want to build, right? We're not seeing AI in so many places that I'm surprised born today, and I think we're gonna see it. And actually, I was listening to one of the partners at A16Z, and it's like, obviously, I don't know, some people may know what A16Z is or VC from, but like, go to your iPhone's home screen, right? And look at all those apps. They're all still traditional, right? What could AI do to power all those things? And then think about how that impacts your day and so on, right? I feel like AI is going to be instrumental to many facets of all our environments, lives, and interactions that we don't see yet. Uh, there are a lot of single role operators that are not even 200 people that will disrupt 200-person organizations because they're looking at your business from a lens and starting with that depth of organization. So, like, I think that once we're all so focused on where we are today and what's working today that's got us to here, we can't lose sight that the biggest opportunity for AI is right now. And how do we actually identify those problems that we're facing that are causing bottlenecks in our businesses and think about how we can use modern tools to improve that for our workforce and our customers and our overall success.
Yeah, look, I think that's amazing advice, and there'll be lots of leaders listening to this who really feel as much passion as you do about it because yeah, the opportunity does seem like it is right now. That's what we believe, and it's great to hear the same from yourself. And I guess just to wrap us up, we like to offer a more broader question, really. In all your years and all your wisdom, what are any sort of articles, publications, mental models that you feel have really helped you to be a great leader in enterprise that could be really useful for the leaders that listen to the AI opportunity?
So, old school man, I listen to You know, beyond talking to Grok candidly. So I'm fortunate to have a Tesla. So I sit there in autopilot, I'm driving, and I have Grok going. And today I will talk to Grok for extended periods about questions I have. So, I would traditionally talk about reading in the past, but today I find learning has changed. And, you be a curious human and ask questions, right? And then use the tools around you to field those questions and get different perspectives to help inform your perspective, is really where I would start. I mean, obviously, I listen to Bloomberg, I read the WSJ, all the things that probably most common people do, right? That give me an understanding of the day to day, the world, the tonality of markets, etc. But like for my curiosity to explore things that questions that I want to know more about, this is more how I'm.
No, it's excellent. And I think there's been a recurring theme really of much of what you said today, which is, leaders should really trust themselves. They should be intellectually curious and do their own research. They shouldn't buy into the hype. They should trust that they know their own businesses and they know the fundamentals of their businesses and seek to find AI solutions that address where their frustrations are or the pinch points in the business. And more than anything, just to summarize where you ended, is they should realize the opportunities right now, because if they're not thinking about it, there are small teams looking at ways to disrupt their business. And
1,000%.
that's where the world's headed. So I think this has been exceptional. Thank you so much for your time, Lucky. And I hope you've enjoyed it too.
I've had a lot of fun, man. I
Good.
appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Well, all the best. And yeah, really, really awesome to have you on the show. Take care. Bye, Lucky.